Listen to me carefully because what I'm about to say might offend you, but it could also save your life. Most people don't lose in life because they're lazy. They don't lose because they're weak. They lose because they keep giving their energy, their time, their money, and their peace to the wrong people. And the scariest part is, they don't even realize they're being used. They call it kindness. They call it loyalty. They call it being a good person. But deep down, they're slowly being drained, and they're smiling while it happens. Let me ask you a question that might hit you hard. Have you ever helped someone, supported someone, stood by someone, and later realized they never truly cared about you? They only cared about what you could do for them. They only showed up when they needed something, and the moment you needed help, they disappeared. If that has ever happened to you, then this video is going to open your eyes in a way you will never forget, because today I am going to reveal the types of people you must stop helping immediately, no matter how innocent they act, no matter how much they beg, and no matter how guilty they try to make you feel. And I promise you, one of these types will shock you, because it's someone you've been protecting for years. Stay with me until the end, because the final truth I'm going to share is the reason why so many good-hearted people stay broke, stay stressed, stay exhausted, and stay stuck in life. And once you hear it, you won't be able to unsee it. This might be the most important video you've ever watched. Most people think the danger is obvious. They think the danger is the loud, toxic person, the aggressive person, the openly disrespectful person. But the real danger is much quieter than that. The real danger is the person who comes to you politely, the person who smiles, the person who speaks softly, the person who says all the right things. And because they don't look like a threat, you lower your guard. You assume they're genuine. You assume they're simply going through a hard time. You assume they deserve your support. And that's exactly how people get trapped. Because some people don't want help. They want access. They want access to your time, because your time is your life. They want access to your attention, because attention is power. They want access to your emotional stability, because they don't have any of their own. They want access to your money, your resources, your connections, your peace. And the scary part is, they won't always ask for it directly. They'll request it in a way that makes you feel responsible. They'll present it as a need, but what they're really doing is testing your boundaries. They are not testing whether you're kind. They already know you're kind. They're testing whether you're strong enough to say no. And if you fail that test, they learn something important about you. They learn that you are easy to reach, easy to convince, easy to manipulate, easy to drain. And once they learn that, they don't just take once, they take repeatedly. Because people who are hungry for access are never satisfied with one meal. They keep coming back, they keep pushing, they keep asking, and every time you give, they respect you less, not more. That sounds harsh, but it's how human psychology works. Because when you keep giving to someone who doesn't earn it, you unintentionally teach them that your boundaries are negotiable. You teach them that your needs are secondary. You teach them that you will tolerate imbalance. And the moment someone realizes they can take from you without consequence, they stop seeing you as a person. They start seeing you as a tool. And the tragedy is, good people rarely notice this happening in real time. Good people tend to interpret other people's behavior through their own heart. They assume others think the way they think. They assume others love the way they love. They assume others feel gratitude the way they feel gratitude. So when someone comes to them with a sad story, they don't question the pattern. They don't question the motive. They focus on the emotion. They focus on the moment. And in that moment, they hand over access. But life doesn't punish you for being kind. Life punishes you for being naive. You have to understand this. Not everyone who is struggling is deserving. Not everyone who is asking is sincere. Some people use struggle as a strategy. Some people use weakness as a weapon. They present themselves as helpless because helplessness makes people feel guilty. And guilt is the most powerful lever in human relationships. If I can make you feel guilty, I can make you act against your own interest. That's not friendship. That's not love. That's control. And one of the clearest signs you are dealing with someone who wants access is this: they never ask how you're doing unless it leads back to them. They never show up when you're struggling. They never offer support unless it benefits them. They don't reach out to build connection. They reach out when they need something. Their presence is conditional. Their loyalty is temporary. Their kindness is transactional. And yet they'll still call you their brother. They'll still say, "I respect you." They'll still tell you, "You're the only one I trust." But those words are not compliments. Those words are bait, because if they can convince you that you're special to them, then they can convince you to overextend yourself. And the more you overextend yourself, the more they get comfortable taking. This is why you have to pay attention to patterns instead of promises. A promise is cheap. A pattern is expensive. A pattern costs time. It costs effort. It costs discipline. So when someone's life is full of excuses and empty of action, that tells you something. It tells you they are not asking for help to change. They are asking for help to stay the same. They want you to keep them afloat so they don't have to learn how to swim. And if you keep doing it, you will eventually become resentful. You will feel drained. You will feel used. You will feel exhausted. And you will wonder why you feel that way, because technically you are doing a good thing. But deep down, your mind knows the truth. Your mind knows you're not in a relationship anymore. You're in a transaction where you keep paying and they keep withdrawing. And the worst part is they will act entitled to your help. They will start treating your generosity like it's normal, like it's expected, like it's your job. And when you finally say no, they won't respond with understanding. They won't respond with gratitude for what you've already done. They'll respond with anger. They'll respond with manipulation. They'll respond with disappointment. Why? Because you're not breaking a friendship. You're breaking their access. And people who rely on access will always get angry when you lock the door. That's why this lesson is so important. Because a lot of people confuse being a good person with being available. They confuse love with sacrifice. They confuse loyalty with self-abandonment. And if you live that way, you will attract the wrong people like a magnet. Not because you're weak, but because you're generous. And generosity without boundaries is like leaving your house unlocked and being surprised when someone walks in and steals from you. You wouldn't call that kindness. You'd call that carelessness. So you have to start thinking differently. You have to realize that your energy is not unlimited. Your emotional bandwidth is not infinite. Your time is not renewable. Once you spend it, it's gone. And if you spend it on people who only come to you for access, you are investing your life into someone who will never give you a return. This is where maturity begins. Maturity is when you stop trying to be liked by everyone and start trying to be respected by yourself. Maturity is when you stop rescuing people who don't respect your effort. Maturity is when you understand that you can care about someone and still refuse to carry them. Because not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. Some people deserve a prayer, a polite goodbye, and distance. And here's the truth that will set you free. You don't need to explain yourself to someone who only values you when you're useful. You do need to justify your boundaries to someone who benefits from you having none. You don't need to feel guilty for protecting your peace. Peace is not selfish. Peace is survival. If you want to know who deserves your help, look at one thing. Look at their effort. Look at their humility. Look at whether they take responsibility. Look at whether they are trying to change, even if they're struggling. Because a person who truly wants help will meet you halfway. They will show gratitude. They will show consistency. They will show growth. But a person who wants access will always want more and still feel like it's not enough. So be wise. Be calm. Be respectful, but be firm, because your kindness is powerful, and anything powerful must be protected. And here's the final thought I want to leave you with. Never forget this. Some people don't want your help. They want your life. So before you open the door, ask yourself one question. Are they asking for support, or are they asking for permission to drain you? Because the moment you learn the difference, you stop being used and you start becoming free. Let's talk about something that most people avoid saying out loud because it sounds harsh, it sounds judgmental, it sounds like the opposite of compassion. But if you're serious about protecting your future, you need to understand this truth with complete clarity. You cannot keep helping someone who keeps making the same mistake, not because you don't care, not because you're cold, not because you lack empathy, but because at some point what you call help stops being help and becomes permission. And that's where good people get trapped. They confuse being supportive with being responsible. They confuse loyalty with self-sacrifice. They confuse kindness with unlimited tolerance. And slowly, without realizing it, they become the safety net for someone else's poor choices. And the reason this is so dangerous is because human beings learn through consequence. That's not an opinion, that's psychology, that's reality. People change when pain becomes more uncomfortable than discipline. People evolve when the cost of their behavior becomes too expensive to ignore. But when you keep stepping in to rescue someone, you remove the cost, you remove the lesson, you remove the consequence, and you leave them with no reason to grow. So what happens? They stay exactly the same. They keep dating the same toxic people. They keep wasting money the same way. They keep ignoring responsibility. They keep avoiding accountability. They keep chasing short-term comfort. And then they come to you again with the same story, just told with different details. And you know what's fascinating? They don't come to you because you have the power to fix them. They come to you because you have the weakness to forgive them. They know you're going to listen. They know you're going to understand. They know you're going to give them another chance. And that's why they don't change. Because as long as you keep giving them an escape route, they never have to face the consequences of their own decisions. Now listen carefully. This is where the conversation becomes uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Some people don't repeat mistakes because they don't know better. They repeat mistakes because it benefits them. It benefits them to stay irresponsible because then someone else will take care of things. It benefits them to stay undisciplined because they can always blame life. It benefits them to stay stuck because being stuck gives them an excuse not to grow. And growth requires discomfort. Growth requires humility. Growth requires admitting, I was wrong. And many people would rather stay in pain than admit they were wrong. So they repeat the same cycle. And every time they repeat it, they come to you. They come to your heart. They come to your compassion. They come to your loyalty. And they use your kindness as a reset button. They treat you like an emotional ATM. They withdraw support, withdraw advice, withdraw money, withdraw energy, and then they walk right back into the same behavior that broke them the first time. And here's the part that you need to understand. If you've ever been the helper, the rescuer, the fixer, when you keep helping someone who refuses to learn, you are not saving them. You are participating in their self-destruction. Because your help becomes the cushion that makes their fall feel survivable. And if the fall feels survivable, they will keep jumping. That's the brutal truth. It's like someone touching a hot stove. The first time they get burned and they learn. But if every time they touch it, someone else rushes in with medicine, excuses, sympathy, and protection, then they never truly feel the pain long enough to respect the lesson. And this is where philosophy comes in. Because at a deeper level, what you're doing is interfering with someone's relationship with reality. Reality is the greatest teacher any human being will ever have. But reality only teaches through consequence. It teaches through discomfort. It teaches through failure. It teaches through loss. And when you keep rescuing someone, you're not being loving. You're being arrogant because you are essentially saying, I don't trust life to teach you, so I'm going to step in and take control. And it might feel noble, but it's not. It's dangerous because it puts you in a position you were never meant to be in. You become their crutch. You become their savior. And when someone sees you as their savior, they stop seeing themselves as capable. That is one of the most tragic outcomes of constant helping. It creates learned helplessness. It trains people to believe they cannot survive without you, and the longer that goes on, the weaker they become. And the more they depend on you, the more entitled they become, because dependency creates resentment, not in you, in them. Yes, you heard me. Sometimes the person you help starts resenting you because your support reminds them of their weakness. Your generosity becomes a mirror they don't want to look into. So instead of gratitude, they feel shame. And instead of shame motivating growth, they turn it into anger. They start acting like you're controlling. They start acting like you're judging them. They start acting like you think you're better than them, but you weren't judging them. You were saving them. And that's why this situation is so toxic. Because you can give everything to someone and still end up being treated like the enemy. And this is where you have to wake up. You have to stop asking, how can I help them? And start asking, what am I teaching them by helping them? Because every time you rescue someone, you are teaching them a lesson. And the lesson is not what you think. You think you're teaching them love. But what they learn is, I can mess up and someone will fix it. You think you're teaching them support. But what they learn is, I don't have to change because someone will carry me. You think you're teaching them compassion. But what they learn is, consequences don't apply to me. And if you keep doing that long enough, you create a person who is emotionally lazy, spiritually lazy, mentally lazy, a person who stops taking responsibility for their life because they've outsourced responsibility to you. Now, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not obligated to be someone's life support system. You are not obligated to absorb the consequences of someone else's choices. You are not obligated to keep giving your energy to someone who keeps wasting their opportunities. Because at some point, you are no longer helping them survive. You are helping them avoid growth. And the most loving thing you can do for someone like that is to step back and let them feel the weight of their decisions. Let them sit in the discomfort. Let them face what they've been running from. Because if they never face it, they will never change. And you know what's even more important? You have a life too. You have goals. You have responsibilities. You have a future that requires your full strength. And every time you waste your emotional energy on someone who keeps repeating the same mistake, you are stealing energy from your own progress. You are delaying your own success. You are draining yourself for someone who is not even trying. And that's not compassion. That's self-betrayal. Now here's the line that separates wise people from exhausted people. Wise people help once, maybe twice, but then they watch behavior. Because behavior is the truth. Words are cheap. Apologies are easy. Tears can be fake. Promises can be repeated. But behavior is expensive. Behavior requires effort. So if someone keeps returning to the same mess, the same chaos, the same destruction, you have to accept that they are not learning. And if they're not learning, your help is not working. And if your help is not working, continuing to give it is not kindness, it's enabling. And enabling is one of the most destructive forms of love because it feels good in the moment, but it destroys the future. So let me leave you with this thought. The next time someone comes to you with the same problem for the 10th time, don't just ask what they need, ask what they've learned. Because if they haven't learned anything, then they don't need your help. They need reality. And sometimes the best help you can give is the help you refuse to offer. Because the moment you stop rescuing them is the moment they finally have to rescue themselves. And that is where real growth begins. Now we need to talk about one of the most dangerous types of people you will ever encounter. And the reason they're dangerous is because they don't look dangerous. They don't come at you with aggression. They don't threaten you openly. They don't demand things like a dictator. They manipulate you like a professional. They smile while they do it. They sound polite while they do it. They even sound hurt while they do it. And if you're not careful, you will spend years thinking you're being kind when, in reality, you're being controlled. These are the people who use guilt as a weapon. And guilt is one of the most powerful psychological tools on earth because guilt doesn't need chains. It doesn't need force. It doesn't need violence. Guilt works because it turns your own conscience against you. It makes you feel like a bad person for protecting yourself. It makes you feel selfish for having boundaries. It makes you feel cruel for saying no. And when someone learns how to trigger your guilt, They don't need to control your body. They control your mind. That's why this topic matters, because a lot of people aren't being used by force. They're being used by emotion. And the worst part is, they don't even realize it. They just feel tired. They feel stressed. They feel overwhelmed. They feel like they're constantly giving and never receiving, and they can't explain why they keep doing it. It's because guilt is running the show. Here's what guilt manipulation looks like. You say no, and they don't respect it. They punish you emotionally. They say things like, wow, I didn't expect this from you. They say, I thought you were different. They say, you changed. They say, I guess I was wrong about you. They say, after everything I did for you. And those words are not communication. Those words are strategy, because the goal isn't to express their feelings. The goal is to make you doubt yourself. They want you to replay the conversation in your head and think, maybe I am selfish. They want you to feel uncomfortable in your own skin until you cave in. And once you cave in, they win, because they've just proven something. They've proven that your boundaries are not real. They've proven that your no is temporary. They've proven that you can be pressured. And once a manipulator learns that, they never stop. This is where it gets deep, because the reason guilt manipulation works is not because the manipulator is powerful. It works because you are a good person. It works because you have empathy. It works because you care about how people feel. And the manipulator knows that. They can sense it. They can see it in your eyes, in your tone, in your hesitation. They recognize that you are someone who doesn't want conflict, so they exploit that. They don't have to be louder than you. They just have to be more emotionally strategic than you. And let's be honest, many of us were raised to be this way. We were raised to believe that being a good person means always being available. We were raised to believe that saying no is rude. We were raised to believe that if someone is upset, it must mean we did something wrong. And if you carry that mindset into adulthood, you become the perfect target. Because manipulators don't look for strong people to fight. They look for kind people to bend. Now listen carefully to this part. A person who respects you will never make you feel guilty for having limits. A person who loves you will not punish you for protecting your peace. A person who values you will not turn your boundaries into an insult. So if someone responds to your no with emotional pressure, what they're revealing is not your weakness. They're revealing their entitlement. Because the truth is, guilt is the language of entitlement. When someone says, how could you do this to me? What they really mean is, you owe me. When someone says, if you cared, you would do it, what they really mean is, your feelings don't matter. When someone says, I would do it for you, what they really mean is, I'm going to emotionally invoice you. That's not love, that's debt. And once you enter a relationship based on emotional debt, you will never feel free. Because every time you try to protect yourself, they'll remind you of something you did or didn't do. They will keep score. They will rewrite history. They will make you feel like you are constantly failing them. And that is the real purpose of guilt. Guilt makes you feel like you are always behind, like you have to prove yourself, like you have to earn their approval. But here's the problem. The approval of a manipulator is never permanent. Because if they ever truly approve of you, they lose their control. So they keep you in a constant state of almost good enough. They keep you chasing. They keep you trying. They keep you overgiving. And then they act like it still wasn't enough. That's why guilt is so destructive. It turns good people into exhausted people. It turns kind people into anxious people. It turns confident people into overthinkers. And here's something that will change the way you see this forever. When someone uses guilt on you, they are not appealing to your kindness. They are exploiting your fear of being misunderstood, your fear of being judged, your fear of being abandoned, your fear of being called selfish. And fear is the doorway to control. That's why guilt feels so heavy, because it's not just an emotion, it's an internal alarm system. It's your mind screaming, don't lose connection. And human beings are wired for connection. We want to belong. We want to be accepted. We want to be loved. So guilt manipulation hits us at the deepest level. But here's the truth. You can be a good person and still say no. You can be loving and still have boundaries. You can be supportive and still refuse disrespect. And you have to understand this, because manipulators want you to believe that your value comes from what you do for them. They want you to believe that if you stop giving, you stop being worthy. That is a lie. Your worth is not tied to your usefulness. Your worth is tied to your character. And if your character is strong, you will not allow someone to use guilt to rewrite your reality, because the reality is simple. If you don't want to do something, you have the right to say no. If you need space, you have the right to take it. If you're drained, you have the right to rest, and you don't owe anyone an explanation that costs you your peace. Now, I want to be very clear, because this is where people get confused. There is a difference between healthy guilt and toxic guilt. Healthy guilt happens when you violate your own values. Toxic guilt happens when someone tries to punish you for honoring your values. Healthy guilt says, I did something wrong. Toxic guilt says, I'm wrong for protecting myself. And once you understand that difference, you become much harder to manipulate. Because the next time someone tries to guilt you, you won't immediately panic. You won't immediately apologize. You won't immediately bend. You will pause. You will observe. And you will recognize the pattern. And here is the most powerful thing you can do in that moment: stay calm. Manipulators feed on emotional reactions. They want you flustered. They want you defensive. They want you explaining yourself like you're on trial. Because the more you explain, the more they control the conversation. But when you stay calm, you send a message. You send a message that their guilt tactics don't work. And when guilt stops working, the manipulator has no power. That's when they reveal their true self. They either respect your boundary or they explode. And if they explode, congratulations. They just exposed who they really are. Because a person who truly cares about you will never get angry at your self-respect. So remember this. Guilt is not always a sign that you did something wrong. Sometimes guilt is just a sign that someone is angry, they can't control you anymore. And if you want a life of peace, strength, and dignity, you must learn to tolerate being misunderstood. You must learn to tolerate disappointing people who benefit from your weakness. You must learn to be okay with someone calling you selfish, when in reality you are finally choosing self-respect. Because here's the truth that most people learn too late: the moment you stop being controlled by guilt is the moment you stop being controlled by people. And that is freedom. So let me leave you with this thought, something you should remember every time someone tries to guilt you into giving more than you can afford. If your no makes them angry, it's because your yes was never appreciated, and you don't owe access to anyone who only values you when you surrender yourself. Now let's bring all of this to the point that most people avoid, because it forces you to make a decision. It forces you to choose a side. And the reason people avoid it is because it sounds selfish at first. It sounds like you're putting yourself above others. But in reality, it's not selfish. It's intelligent. It's mature. It's necessary. If you want to survive in this world with your dignity intact, you have to learn to protect your peace, because your future depends on it. Your peace is not just a nice feeling. Your peace is not just comfort. Peace is the foundation of your mental clarity. Peace is the foundation of your discipline. Peace is the foundation of your confidence. Without peace, your mind becomes chaotic. Your emotions become unstable. Your decisions become impulsive. And when your decisions become impulsive, your life becomes unpredictable. That is why protecting your peace is not optional. It is a responsibility. Because the truth is, the world will always demand something from you. People will always have problems. Someone will always need help. Someone will always be struggling. Someone will always have drama. Someone will always have an emergency. And if you build your life around responding to everyone else's chaos, you will never build anything of your own. You will spend your entire life being reactive. And a reactive life is not a powerful life. A reactive life is a life controlled by other people's emotions, other people's mistakes, other people's poor planning, other people's selfishness, and other people's lack of discipline. And the worst part is, you can lose years that way. You can lose your youth, You can lose your potential, you can lose your energy, and you won't even realize it's happening until one day you look back and you feel an emptiness you can't explain. Because deep down, you know you were busy being everyone's support system, while no one was supporting your dreams. This is why you have to start seeing your life differently. Your life is not an unlimited resource. You don't have unlimited emotional strength. You don't have unlimited time. You don't have unlimited patience. You don't have unlimited energy. And every time you give your attention to the wrong person, you are giving away a piece of your future. People underestimate this. They think it's just a phone call, it's just a favor, it's just one more chance, it's just a little money, it's just one more conversation. But those just add up. They add up into months, they add up into years, they add up into a life you didn't build. And here's the part that hits hard. Most people don't destroy your future in one big dramatic moment. They destroy it slowly. They destroy it through constant small interruptions, constant emotional emergencies, constant crises that somehow always become your responsibility, constant problems that never get solved because the person causing them never changes. So when we talk about protecting your peace, we're not just talking about avoiding negativity. We're talking about protecting the space where your purpose grows, because your purpose requires silence. Your purpose requires focus. Your purpose requires consistency. Your purpose requires emotional stability. You cannot build a great life in a mind full of noise. That noise might come from toxic people. It might come from needy people. It might come from manipulative people. It might even come from people who aren't evil, but they are undisciplined. They are always in trouble. They are always drowning, and they are always reaching for your hand, not to rise, but to pull you down with them. And if you don't have boundaries, you will drown too. You have to understand that peace is a form of wealth. It is one of the highest forms of wealth. Because money can be earned back. Time cannot. Energy cannot. Mental clarity cannot. Once your mind is exhausted, everything in your life becomes harder. You start making bad decisions. You start procrastinating. You start losing motivation. You start doubting yourself. And then you start wondering why you're not progressing. But it's not because you were lazy. It's because you are emotionally overbooked. You are spending your mental strength on people who are not building anything. And the reason this is so important is because your future is built in the quiet moments. Your future is built in the mornings when you wake up and choose discipline. Your future is built in the evenings when you stay consistent. Your future is built in the decisions you make when no one is watching. It's built in the moments where you choose to grow instead of entertain drama. So when someone keeps disrupting your peace, they are not just disrupting your mood, they are disrupting your destiny. And this is where you have to be honest with yourself. Some people are not in your life to support your future. Some people are in your life to consume it. They don't say that directly. They don't announce it. They don't wake up and think, let me ruin this person's life. No, it's subtler than that. They just live in a constant state of need. They live in a constant state of taking. They live in a constant state of emotional chaos. And because you are kind, you keep showing up. But kindness without boundaries becomes self-sabotage, and this is where mature people separate themselves from the crowd. Because most people want to be liked. They want to be seen as generous. They want to be seen as loyal. They want to be seen as helpful, and there is nothing wrong with those things. But if you chase those labels too hard, you will become a slave to other people's expectations. You will start living your life for approval, and approval is the most expensive drug on earth. Because the more you chase it, the more you lose yourself. And that is why protecting your peace is an act of self-respect. It is you saying, I have a responsibility to my future self. Your future self is counting on you. Your future self is counting on you to stop wasting time. Your future self is counting on you to stop tolerating disrespect. Your future self is counting on you to stop being available for chaos. Your future self is counting on you to choose discipline over distraction. And here's something most people don't realize. When you protect your peace, you don't just improve your life, you improve your standards. And your standards determine your relationships. Because once you become a person who values peace, you stop entertaining people who live in drama. You stop making excuses for toxic behavior. You stop being impressed by emotional stories. You start being impressed by character. You start being impressed by consistency. You start being impressed by accountability. You begin to see people clearly. And that's a powerful transformation, because many people don't suffer because they're unlucky. They suffer because they allow too much access. They allow certain people to call them anytime. They allow certain people to vent nonstop. They allow certain people to disrespect them and still return. They allow certain people to drain their energy and still receive kindness. And they call it loyalty. But loyalty to the wrong people is betrayal to yourself. And if you want to become strong, you have to accept something. Some people will be offended when you start protecting your peace. Some people will call you selfish. Some people will say you changed. Some people will act like you're cold. Some people will try to guilt you. But the truth is, you didn't become selfish. You became aware, because when you start valuing your peace, you start valuing your life. And when you start valuing your life, you stop giving it away to people who don't even appreciate it. And let me tell you something. The right people will respect your boundaries. The right people will not punish you for saying no. The right people will not take your peace personally. Only the wrong people do that. So when you start protecting your peace, you are not losing people. You are filtering people. You are removing the distractions. You are removing the emotional noise. You are removing the weight that was slowing you down. And that's when you begin to rise. Because success is not just about talent. It's about clarity. It's about focus. It's about emotional stability. It's about being able to think clearly and act consistently. And you cannot do that while constantly being pulled into other people's chaos. So here is the mindset shift you need to take seriously. You don't need to explain your boundaries to people who disrespect them. You don't need to apologize for protecting your mental health. You don't need permission to choose your future, because your future is not going to build itself, and nobody is coming to save you. So if you want to become the strongest version of yourself, you have to start acting like your peace is sacred, because it is. And here's the final thought I want to leave you with. Your life will change the moment you realize this. You can't build a powerful future while entertaining people who destroy your peace. So choose wisely, because the people you allow into your life will either elevate your destiny or slowly erase it. And your peace is the price of admission.